It's great to see the Melbourne Cinematheque is about to launch. Well, in fact, on the 7th of February, running through until December 18th at Acme. Melbourne Cinematheque, always a great array of programs and films. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the Executive Director of the Melbourne Cinematheque, Michael Koller. Michael, as always, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Well, the cat never comes. Oh, she goes. She never comes in.
Oh,
There you go. It must be your great appeal.
of
Hello, Peter.
course. She might be your assistant director. Who knows? But
Oh, maybe.
all right. Now, again, as I always like asking you first up, what were the challenges in deciding what would make up this year's Cinematheque program?
Um, what were I think it's the usual story. It's actually locating prints for things, and some are obviously relatively easy, and others are quite difficult. And even sometimes when you think they're going to be easy, they can be difficult. Um, it's like, well, it's prints and rights, and it can be very, very time consuming doing stuff like that.
Sure. No, I fully
And working
understand.
out, it's people think programming is all about, let's just make up a list of films and put them together, and I can do that. It's real easy, but they don't realise that that is the real easy part, and the rest of it's actually making a season where you start off with, okay, so we run usually 6 films in a season, so you might start with a list of about 20, although often it's about 8 or 10. It's surprising actually how few really great films a lot of directors have made. Actually, as I said, there's only about 6 or 10. Sometimes we're pushing the six, and the final film is not necessarily one that we would want to put on, but that's all right. They'll
I,
probably be reassessed in 10 years' time, and they'll be the great masterpiece that they've created.
No, I understand fully the process. It's always tricky, especially locating prints and so on, because of course the Cinematheque prefers to screen films in their original format, be it film format, etc. So, which is great. Now, you're leading off the season from 7th of February with French musicals. What an interesting idea. But I think you've programmed Un Femme et une Femme because that was the first film screened at the Cinematheque.
Yeah, it's the 40th anniversary. So
Mm.
it's the first film, once we did our name change from Melbourne University Film Society to Melbourne Cinematheque, when we moved to RMIT, that was, yes, the very first film we screened. In fact, this is the second French musical season that we have done now. We did one, I don't know, it's always hard to tell, maybe 10 years ago, um, with Under the Roofs of Paris, the René Clair film, and the Chantal Akerman Golden 80, the 80s as
Ah,
well.
yep.
Um, yeah, and obviously a number of other films. There was a Jacques Demy there, I'm sure, but I can't tell you which one it was.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, let's talk about what's in this year's season, and I've noticed you've programmed that sublime film, Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and also À nous la liberté, which I've seen a few times. It's a fantastic 1931 working class musical. It's really wonderful René Clair film.
See, this is what's really interesting. René Clair, okay, he was big in the 30s and the 40s, and in the past, certainly 20 and 30 years ago, it was easy to get prints of these things. Now, in fact, we had huge trouble getting a print. And in fact, we ended up getting a DCP from the French company that owns the rights, the world rights. I mean, I tracked down several 35mm prints, but they were supposedly unscreenable. And I think this is what's happening now, is that there's a lot more work put into supposedly restoring DCPs, and there's not a lot of 35mm prints being produced anymore. And the ones that do exist are basically wasting away.
Hmm.
And certainly, and I'm not trying to be critical of BFI here. BFI was actually one place that we had a hunt for one of the Rene Clair musicals, and they had prints of pretty much all of them, but they were unable to loan them to us. And I had this occur with actually quite a number of films that we asked them about. There were some, they did actually have quite a few other films that they had prints of, that we did the 35mm prints for. But it is really, I would have thought that it would be quite easy to find a print of a Rene Clair musical, but it wasn't.
Mm. That is a surprise, but yes, it's a sad situation that's happening. And you've also programmed French Can and One Sings, the Other Doesn't, and Anna. So it sounds like a terrific season.
Yeah, well, I mean, we obviously Anna we put on because, for a starter, it's got Anna Karina in it playing
Mm.
the main character, but it's got music by Serge Gainsborough as well. So, and I believe the film festival ran that many years ago when Anna Karina came out as well, and that was again quite difficult to track down,
Mm.
and that was thanks to Michelle actually because she programmed it last time for the film festival, so she gave me
Ah.
details of where to go. So that
Okay.
was nice.
Well, it's a great start to 2024 Melbourne Cinematheque, the six films as part of French musicals. Then you travelled to the Taviani brothers with
Italy.
a great array of films there. Night of the Shooting Stars, what a great film that is, and Padre Padroni, etc.
Well, see, again, Padre Padroni was impossible to find the rights for, and I would have thought it'd be easy. That's probably, well, arguably that's their most famous film. I mean, obviously with Night of the Shooting Stars, um, but that was almost impossible, and it was actually quite difficult tracking down the rights on their films.
Hmm.
I think because they're relatively independent, they had a really interesting way of making movies. Do you know how they did it? Because they directed and produced all of their films.
Hmm.
So one of them did the first scene of the day, and the other one did the second scene of the day, right? And if they ended up with an odd number of scenes at the end of the day, they would flip a coin.
Wow.
I don't think there's anywhere else in the world where that technique has been applied, actually. But it's really interesting because when you watch TV shows anyway, you can usually pick up you know directorial ticks along the way. But here there's a real consistency across their films that you know. I suppose if one of them was sick, maybe one day the other director did all the films, but who knows?
Hmm.
So yeah, so we've got probably their most famous films on, and we've got a number of lesser known ones, certainly earlier ones. We've got a man, un uomo da brocchiare, pardon my Italian, Burning Man, which is, 1962 film, and we also have St. Michael Had a Rooster, 1972 film.
Hmm.
So we're trying to spread over their whole career, and they are filmmakers who had a very illustrious career, and they made good films over their whole career, but they made some pretty terrible ones too, I must say. But this is a fantastic selection, and
Yes.
of course the last film they made, Caesar Must Die.
Yes, which I've seen. Yes, it's set
It's
in a
in,
prison, I think. Yeah.
yes, it's the prison guys are putting on a performance of Shakespeare.
Yep.
And it's actually a wonderful, wonderful film. Yes.
It is. It is. Okay. Excellent season again.
Mm.
Then you're following it up with, I think, a really inspired season of films that feature the actress Gloria Graham. And I still have very fond memories of Bad and the Beautiful and The Big Heat, for example, which are all part of that season.
And In a Lonely Place.
Yes.
In fact, I mean, Adrian said this too. If we hadn't have gotten In a Lonely Place, I guess we wouldn't have done the season, because that is probably, well, her greatest film, I would say, and certainly her greatest performance. And it's where she is basically well, one of two main characters with Bogart, a truly fantastic film. And I mean, the problem often can be with women actors is that they get, the second roles. They play the girlfriend of the lead or the wife of the lead or something like this, or some romantic interest along the way, which is fairly limiting. But I think that The Big Heat, again, her role's not fantastically big, but wow, you don't forget her performance in that. And as you said, The Bad and the Beautiful, which she won an Oscar for, I suppose. And that's an ensemble piece too. So, yes, I think she's in a number of really, really wonderful films. And this is a great display of her as a performer. And as if you really want to get into complicated human beings, you need to read something about her life. It's truly, truly unbelievable. To make that into a movie, I don't know if anybody would believe it. Did you know about her at all?
I don't know much about her background, no.
Okay. So she, in A Lonely Place, she made with Nick Ray, okay?
Yes.
She was married to him, and then she had an affair with his stepson as well.
Oh.
Yes, exactly. And there's lots of other stuff.
Okay. Well, a documentary about her, I think, should be in the works.
Yeah.
Okay. Then after that season, we're now into April. We're talking tribute to John Flaus, which is fantastic. And he must be 90 now, I think. And with
He is. That's why
yeah.
it's called a tribute to John Flaus at 90.
Yes. Queensland
You're
Yakety
very
Yak.
observant there.
Thank you very much. And Blood
so
Money.
we had when he was 80.
Yes.
When he was 80, we had a tribute to him as well. We screened a couple of films that he had written about a lot, and he gave a big talk at those. And there was a dossier produced about the influence he's had on people, which is on Sensitive Cinema. People go and check that out. But this time at 90, we're showing films that he performed in. And I mean, the three were showing a fantastic films.
Yes.
Yakety Yak.
Yep.
A brilliant little scene film.
Yes, not well.
About movie making. Queensland. I mean, wonderful film by John Ruane.
Yep.
And Blood Money, bit of an action movie.
Yes.
And it's central to all of those. I mean, in a way, he's a bit like Gloria Graham in that, he's in a lot of films, but they're fairly small roles often. But these ones, he's definitely a main performer in.
He is.
And we were hoping he would be there, and he may be there, but I doubt it. I think he's getting a bit. It's difficult. I think a bit more difficult for him to move around nowadays. So.
Yes, I've heard, unfortunately, that I think his Alzheimer's has progressed, and
yes.
I think he's in a retirement home or something now.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I mean, it does surprise me that he got to 90, if I can be so rude, because, I knew him for a long time. I think I went to his 50th birthday, certainly his 60th birthday. And he was a huge smoker in the old days, huge. But, he's been leading a healthy life, surprisingly, over the last 30 years, I think.
Good to hear. All right.
Well, out in the country, getting that fresh air.
Exactly. And
he has been, I mean, people, even last year, people were going up there to listen to him talk about screenings that he put on. So, maybe he's not so great now, but I think he's deteriorated in the last 6 months or so. But before then, he was still, I mean, he was slowing down, but he was still right on the ball there.
Yes. And he was making some films with Seydan Salkin, I think, the indie filmmaker. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting character. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that.
Oh, yes. I believe so. That's what everyone told me.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, anyway, that's on April 10th. John Flaus. And yes, Anne Hui, talk about programming her films.
Okay. So she was, again, great difficulty getting films. And even we got in touch with her, or Eloise put that together. She got in touch with her, and she had no idea where her films were at all, which is, it's kind of sad in a way. And she was really, really excited that we were doing this season because it is kind of sad, She was one of the new wave of Hong Kong cinema, along with John Woo and who else? Think of us. Choi Hark, and a lot of others. And she made 3 or 4 really sensational films at the start of her career. And she's continued to make films. In fact, we're showing her new film, which is a documentary called Elegies, which is, I'm going to read from here, portrait of poets and poetry, both literal and figurative, buried within the fabric of Hong Kong's bustling topography. And that's an Australian premiere. As I said, it was completed late last year. But we're showing some of her major films. Boat People is very, very good.
Yep.
Song of the Exile, again, very, very good. And The Secret. There were 3 of her seminal films made early in the career.
Excellent. Glad to see those films and her work being showcased. That's terrific. And after that, we're now into May, and one of my favourite teams of filmmakers, British filmmakers, Powell and Pressburger. Black Narcissus.
There's a few of those, though. Teams of English.
Yes, I know. Of course.
You could say, yes, they're my favourite because there's a few others as well.
There are, but they, I think, made such great films.
Yeah, and a couple of the others made a lot of very good films.
Sure.
Okay, so this was really bubbling along for a couple of years. I think we initially wanted to do a season maybe 2 years ago, but we couldn't get prints because there was an embargo on them until they were restoring a lot of them, and on DCPs, of course, and they were waiting till the big season that occurred at the BFI late last year. So we kind of were a bit pushy, actually. Even getting them for May was a little bit difficult, I must say. But we did manage to put the season together, and we got the ones that we really wanted. A Canterbury Tale is really an absolutely brilliant film, a war effort thing, which is kind of weird because it's about this guy going around putting glue in women's hair, which is, in a way, a very kind of Michael Powell thing. He seems to have this real kind of twisted sense of filmmaking in a way.
Yes.
And then we have pretty much one of his earliest things called The Edge of the World documentary, dealing with, well, the last inhabitants on an island in the, where is it? St Kilda, is that right? Scottish Archipelago of St Kilda. Then we get back to Black Narcissus, obviously one of the great films. The one film we're not showing is Red Shoes, by choice. It's like when we did a Well season many years ago, we didn't run Citizen Kane by choice, because if people want to see Red Shoes or Citizen Kane, it's usually not that hard to see it. And Red Shoes tends to travel around a bit anyway. I Know Where I'm Going. We did try to, we were going to show that, but that's screening at about the same time as our season was on. So we thought, well, we'll let someone else have that, and we'll put another film instead, which I think was Canterbury, Black Narcissus.
Right.
So we put that on the set of it.
Okay, and I really enjoyed their film Thief of Baghdad, a really nice version of
I love that.
the story. Beautifully done.
That's one of those really great kids' films, I think.
Yes.
That one and Jason and the Argonauts.
Yes.
They're the two, I think. And the real treat for those who most people haven't seen it is Bluebeard's Castle.
Right.
Incredible. It's an opera performance. Again, we start with a film that Powell made at the start of his career without Pressburger, Edge of the World, and we finish with Bluebeard's Castle, which he made for German television. It's his version of the German opera, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
For a guy whose career supposedly had fizzled out and been destroyed after Peeping Tom, there's still quite a few gems there,
Mm.
of which this is one of them. And then
And
The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp,
great film.
another wartime propaganda piece, which again was, I think, criticised very much by, what's his name? The Prime Minister, Churchill, when it was made.
Right.
And it was censored as well. Yeah, they didn't really
Ah.
think it had elements of defeatism about it. Something they always say, unless they really push the correct party line. But I mean, that's what's interesting about their war films, is
Mm.
that they don't portray the Nazis or the Germans as fumbling fools, but quite intelligent people who are out there kind of, fighting against the British, but the British are just smarter and cleverer and more tenacious in the end.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. Screenwriter Susie Chechi D'Amico.
Miko.
Yeah.
This is to tie in with in May, I think it's May, or maybe it's June. The Italians have this thing where they promote, I don't think film directors, but filmmakers every year. They've been doing it for only a couple of years now. So we're doing this as part of that. And I mean, it wasn't difficult because, well, it was difficult on one level. It was easy because she made wrote scripts for hundreds of films, or at least collaborated. This is the problem with script writers, especially when you're working on Italian films. There could be a dozen people involved along the line. And, did they contribute just one line of dialogue, or did they write all the major monologues in it or not? She did, I guess, most famously Bicycle Thieves, a film that we're not showing because we screened that a couple of years ago anyway. And there's a number of her other films that we're not screening because we have screened quite a lot. You can see she was very much worked with De Sica, did a lot of films with, and a lot with Visconti as well. And I think she did a few with Fellini also. So she had her favourites. I think, Antonioni, she did at least a couple with. As you can see, we've got two of his early films on. Really, really, because Antonioni is really known for his kind of trilogy, whatever you say. Those films in the late 50s and into the 60s, which are wonderful films. But the stuff he made in the 50s, I think, is equally as brilliant, even though it's perhaps more mainstream in a sense. And they do deal very much with female characters as well, very strong female characters as well. So I think those two, The Woman Without Camellias and The Girlfriends, are both really terrific films. I Magliari, the Francesco Rossi films, very, very strong kind of political thing. And The Passionate Thief, I have no idea about that, but apparently that is very good as well. Mario Monticelli.
Okay. Now, coming up after that is films by Mac Malbaf and Meshkini. Some very interesting films there.
Yeah, well, again, this is, as you can see, the house that Mawson built. It's the films of, basically, it's the company's called the Michael Malbaf Film School. And it's mainly the family. I think there may have been other people involved at some stage. And in fact, half of these films we're getting directly from them, and it's from the brother. And the brother, they all seem to work on each other's films. But the brother seems to be, I don't know if he's ever directed anything or produced anything, but he certainly acted in a number of the films, and he's had other kind of roles along the way. So he's the guy who basically handles the films. Very nice guy, very easy to deal with. And he was a lot of help as well in us putting this season together. So we've got Meshkini's film, The Day I Became a Woman, which is, she's the wife. I think she's made 3 films, of which this is probably the best known. It's basically a documentary about a girl becoming a woman, obviously, what's called The Day I Became a Woman. And again, I think the whole family were involved in this, producing, writing, cinematography, all kinds of things. But we have a number of his Mawson's kind of key works, The Silence, Garbe, and Moment of Innocence, and Salam Cinema and Silence. Okay, and we've got and Garbe, yes, which I mentioned, and we've got 3 films made by Samira as well: The Apple, Blackboards, which have both been screened here.
Yep.
And fantastic. And a more recent film, which I don't think's ever screened in Australia, called not recent. It's 15 years old. Two-Legged Horse. Certainly, I haven't seen it. When I spoke to others, and they hadn't seen it either. But apparently, that is a very good. Two-legged horse being a human being.
Okay, I love that you screen.
It's not a horse that's had 2 legs amputated or anything.
Thank you.
I think it's the other way around. This person's hanging out with us horses. This thing's hanging out with us horses, but it's kind of a bit useless because it's only got 2 legs. I think it's a bit like that.
Right. I love the way you screen a combination of films that are known as well as films that are not well known. That's so important to educate the audience, I suppose. Now, then we have a season of films by Jean Eustache and Mother and the Whore. I think is such a great film.
This is actually a complete retrospective of his films. And it's going to be a lot of long nights. Start at 6:30, going till after 11 on all the nights. And in fact, on the final film or short of his is screening actually before L'Amour Fou as well. And L'Amour Fou's 4.25 hours as well. So
yes,
there's 4 very long nights there.
Yes,
all of which have got Jean Eustache films on them. As you said, Mother and the Whore is the film that, if anybody knows anything about Jean Eustache, they know that film. And probably not much else. It's a key work. It's a 3.5 hour film, very simple. I think it deals with moments it's very autobiographical, both from the point of Jean Eustache and the 2 women involved in it. I think also they were very troubled human beings. All 3 of the main characters were, because Eustache, who's being played by Jean-Pierre Léaud in the film, Eustache himself committed suicide eventually, which is why we could screen all these films in a sense. His family did actually block the release of the films for a very long time, but they screened, I think, at the Cannes Film Festival last year. And we were very lucky to basically be able to screen all of his films. Most of them, there's 2 or 3 fiction works, which are about an hour each, and then the rest of them are pretty much documentaries, again, about a similar length.
Okay. Now, I need to move quickly because I notice my Zoom is going to be running out soon. Yuri Menzel, I must mention, Closely Observed Trains. I Served the King of England, which I think was a very good film. Glad to see a season of his films.
Yes. He's probably we've screened a lot of Czech films over the years, and that's the one that we haven't done. And basically, he's probably the best known filmmaker. And certainly, Closely Observed Trains, Closely Watched Trains is the one film that people usually know. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. Again, it's pretty much his best known films, and there's a documentary there as well. You missed out the Japanese filmmaker.
Yeah, I'm trying to move quickly.
who is a more recent discovery. His films are completely wacky and totally out there and totally outrageous. So we can move on now.
Yes, I like outrageous. Okay, love it. Nikos Koundaras, yes. I know Young Aphrodites, for example.
Exactly. That's the one I know. I don't really know the others.
Right.
But he's a highly respected independent filmmaker. He didn't make a lot of films. I think that was showing about half of what his income, his output was. So And I think that's been done in association with the Greek Film Festival as well.
Excellent.
Then we have Jenny Thornley, a night of
Yes.
films, documentaries, including
Yes.
her recent film, which screened at the film festival last year, Memory Film, a
Yes. Good.
filmmaker
Really good
diary.
film. Yep.
Yes, a really nice summation of her work.
Yep.
And then we have
Derek Jarman.
Derek Jarman,
Yep.
the very famous experimental gay filmmaker, I think, and was showing some of his early films, more a combination of clips, because he was well known for making video clips. Some of his Super 8 filmmaking, again, he was very well known for Super 8 filmmaking. And we're finishing with Blue, which is his very last film, which is, I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No.
Is basically Blue is what you get. It's a 60-minute film. He was blind at the time, blue screen with voiceover. Things as well. Talking about
Okay. Yes, I know
that.
Jubilee and Caravaggio, Wittgenstein, and so on. Anyway, great. Okay, then we go on to one of my favorites, Ernst Lubitsch, and so glad to see his early films, restorations, Forbidden Paradise, Carmen, and Kohlhiesel's Töchter.
Yeah, well, the interesting there is that that last film actually hasn't even had its premiere yet. I think it's going to be on at Berlin. Has Berlin been on yet?
No, not yet. It's about to.
Yes, okay. That's having its world premiere. So I've kind of cheated there a bit. We haven't quite we haven't quite got permission to screen that yet. But the other, even but I've been told that probably we can have it. And even Carmen, I mean, that was a bit tricky. Well, that's only just come out from Forbidden Paradise, a little older, but still, I mean, they're a couple of years old, all of them. So that's really fantastic. Tom Sabricki,
yes,
Australian filmmaker, a leftist guy who is well known for his documentaries. He made a version of Brand New Day back in 1991.
Yep.
I think it's based. It's a documentary about the performance of the play itself. And Chimera, Diary of a Stray, which is literally, well, I guess in a sense like Strikebound, but it's a documentary about an ongoing strike. Yep. And he will be present for both of our screenings of his works, and he's very excited to come down from Sydney to do this. And finally, as the other part of our celebration, kind of booking, we've got a season of films from the Melbourne University Film Society from the 60s.
Great.
In the 60s, Melbourne University Film Society was actually making films. The Melbourne Film Society, it's the 75th anniversary of their first screening. They ran Battleship Potemkin as their first screening. And I think at some stage or other, we did actually acknowledge that, maybe at the 50th or the 60th anniversary. But we didn't want to do that this time around. But as I said, they did make a whole batch of quite wonderful films, of which we're showing the films that were made in the 60s. There's a whole batch of films made in the 50s as well. And what more can I say?
Yes.
Most of those people went on to make films in the fledgling film industry. And let's face it, early 60s films, there wasn't a lot around.
No. Well, Unknown Pleasures, Bill Masoulis is also screening some of that stuff, Nick Ostrovsky's, and of course I've spoken to last year to John Hughes when his documentary and so on. So it's great to see that there's more visibility for a lot of that early filmmaking.
Yeah. Well, I think it's always important to go back, show this stuff, because people haven't seen it and the people don't know.
No.
So, well, it's like with everything, really.
Very true. Another excellent year coming up for the Melbourne Cinematheque, starting February 7th at Acme and running through till December 18th. Wednesday nights, absolutely. Wednesday at 7, although earlier for the Jean Eustache films.
For those 4 programs at 6:30. Yes.
Absolutely. And I've got a couple of minutes left just to ask you, Michael, have you seen anything else of late that has impressed you?
Have I seen anything recently?
Yeah.
I can't think of actually.
No, nothing in
Was
cinema, nothing at all.
I don't think I saw anything very exciting in the movies recently because I tend to go with my family, which means
Uh-huh.
that we end up seeing box office bonanza films. I must say, Pretty Things I saw and I hated it.
Poor things. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Poor Things. Yes,
Yeah.
I hate it.
Oh,
So that came
okay.
right around. Yes, I sat there for the whole of the thing and thought, what am I doing here with my wife? I think she loved it. So everybody else loves it, but not me. So there you go.
Fair enough. We all have our own
Although I must
tastes.
say, I did think it did get more interesting when she kind of grew up, if I can say that, along the way. I thought
Okay.
it was an infantile state. It wasn't very exciting, I thought.
Fair enough. No, no, it's great that we all have differing opinions. I
So
thought
what
it
did
was
you think of it?
I loved it. I thought the
Do
Yorgos
you think it was
Lanthimos is such a great out there
going to be very
filmmaker.
excited when it wins the best Oscar film?
I don't think he will, but
No, no, do I. So who's going to win that?
look, I suspect Oppenheimer has got the inside running for the Oscars. But I would love to see The Holdovers and Anatomy of a Fall win awards as well.
Yeah, I
They're
must admit,
great films.
Anatomy of Fall, I thought was one of the best films I saw last year. But I mean, I saw that, the film festival, so that was a long
Sure.
time ago.
And one I'm looking
Um,
forward to, Zone of Interest.
I don't think Barbie's going to get the best film.
No,
That
it'll
would be
win a few
well,
other awards, maybe Best Song or
yeah,
whatever.
it'll win they always win the technical awards, don't they?
Yes, yes, yes. But
But,
still, it's great to be nominated.
oh, but who knows? Who knows?
Yes,
Maybe Margot. I mean, what'd be great if Barbie won would be that Margot Robbie would get an Oscar anyway.
that's true. Absolutely right. Um,
And I must say, I really, really admire her because she's been involved in a lot of this stuff that she's acted in.
yes,
She's had a major role in putting it together, and the Barbie film is one of those.
yes, exactly. And
It's not some performer who has been added as a associate producer because they've managed to get a number of other people come along to it.
yes, no, no, she's very much
Yeah,
involved, which is great to see. My Zoom is just about to kill me. So,
yeah.
Michael Koller, Executive Director of the Melbourne Cinematheque, thank you as always. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Pleasure.
All the
Talk
best.
to you. See you on Wednesday.
Yes, I'm going to be there. Thank you. Bye
Bye,
bye.
Peter.